Good evening, everyone. Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great. So thank you, everyone, for coming to today's panel, Rehabilitation, Not Incarceration. And I want to give a special shout out and deep gratitude and love for the California Immigrant Youth Justice Alliance, who's hosting this very important event today. So can we give a round of applause to
Great. Okay, much better. So my name is Stacy Sa, and I will be moderating the panel, and I'm incredibly excited to share the space with these amazing panelists before you and learn alongside you all. And before I introduce the panelists, I wanted to take a moment to contextualize some of what will be discussed today. So as a society, we've chosen to rely on incarceration to address social issues, whether it's poverty, mental health, trauma, immigration, gender-based violence, substance use, and so much more. And we know that marginalized communities, including Black people, people of color, immigrants, refugees, women, queer, trans, and gender non-conforming people, poor folks, and disabled folks are disproportionately criminalized. And we know that the criminal legal system and the deportation system work hand in hand. Often, people who are most vulnerable and targeted by the deportation system are the ones who have had a previous criminal conviction. And also, county jails are used to incarcerate immigrants and refugees who are facing deportation. And we've seen over and over again how we as a society rely on incarceration as a solution for everything. I'm letting the interpreter catch us.
Okay. Well, you can finish and then we'll jump in Spanish. Okay, do you want to do like sentence by sentence or paragraph? I have both. Okay, cool. You can.
Okay. So there is going to be consecutive interpretation that's happening, and I think that is one of the great challenges and joys of having a bilingual event. So please bear with us and be patient with us. So as you know, the name of today's panel is Rehabilitation, Not Incarceration. And rehabilitation as a concept is limiting because rehabilitation assumes that the people who are incarcerated, people who are criminalized, are the ones who should be fixed and changed, when it is our incarceration and deportation system that need to be dismantled entirely. So we don't want to fall into the trap of reforming a violent system that can never be rehabilitated and that can never be fixed. And so it's part of what the reformist movements that have advocated for rehabilitation, that's part of what led us to the mass deportation and incarceration crisis that we have today.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por venir al foro de hoy, como se llama Rehabilitación y Encarcelamiento. Un profundo agradecimiento y amor a la Alianza de Jóvenes Inmigrantes para la Justicia de California, CIYJA, por anfitrionar hoy este evento importante. Mi nombre es Stacy Sue y yo voy a moderar el foro. Estoy muy emocionada de compartir este espacio con estos penalistas increíbles y aprender con todos ustedes. Antes de introducir a los penalistas, tomaré un momento para contextualizar un poco de lo que conversaremos hoy. Como sociedad, hemos escogido depender en el encarcelamiento para arreglar problemas sociales, ya sean temas de pobreza, salud mental, trauma, inmigración, violencia basada en género, uso de sustancias y muchos más. Comunidades marginadas, incluyendo gente negra, gente de color, inmigrantes, refugiados, mujeres, gente queer, trans, género no conforme, gente pobre y gente con deshabilidades son desproporcionadamente criminalizadas. El sistema criminal legal y el sistema de deportaciones trabajan a la par. A menudo las personas más vulnerables y afectadas por el procedimiento de deportaciones son quienes previamente tienen convicciones criminales. Las cárceles del condado son usadas para encarcelar inmigrantes y refugiados que enfrentan deportaciones. Hemos visto una y dependemos en el encarcelamiento como una solución para todo. Como saben, el nombre del evento de hoy se llama Rehabilitación y no encarcelamiento. Rehabilitación como un concepto es limitado, ya que rehabilitación asume que las personas criminalizadas y encarceladas deberían ser corregidas o cambiadas, cuando son nuestros sistemas de encarcelamiento y deportaciones que deben ser eliminados por completo. No queremos caer en la trampa de reformar un sistema violento. Y es lo que rehabilitación se presenta a movimientos de reforma que han fallado una y otra vez en rehabilitar un sistema que nunca podrá ser corregido. Es parte de lo que nos dirigimos al encarcelamiento masivo y a la crisis de las deportaciones que hoy tenemos. El encarcelamiento falla en hablar del daño o violencia que sucede en todas las comunidades, en vez de crear daño o violencia. Lo que necesitamos es invertir en nuestras propias comunidades para que todos tengamos recursos para prosperar y estar seguros, incluyendo el cuidado de salud, de calidad, que incluye cuidado de salud mental, vivienda asequible, salario digno y mucho más. El reto para todos nosotros es cómo verdaderamente peleamos por la liberación para liberar a las personas del encarcelamiento mientras tratamos de discutir actualmente las condiciones horribles del encarcelamiento sin invertir más dinero en sistemas fallados que crean más violencia.
So incarceration fails to address harm or violence that happens in every community and instead creates more harm and violence. So what we need to do instead is to invest in our own communities so that everyone has the resources to be able to thrive and to be safe, including quality health care that includes mental health care, affordable housing, a living wage, and so much more. And what we need is healing, right? And the challenge for all of us is how do we truly fight for liberation to free people from incarceration while also addressing the current horrific conditions of incarceration without investing more money into a failed system that creates more violence. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our amazing panelists today, all of whom will be highlighting different encounters and experiences with incarceration and deportation.
Sin más que decir, quiero introducir a nuestros penalistas increíbles, quien pueden subrayar diferentes encuentros y experiencias del encarcelamiento y deportaciones.
So I will start with Sakon on my right. So Sakon Lesavengthang was born in Laos as the one of 9 children. His parents separated when he was 5, after which he migrated to the US with his mom and 3 sisters. After living in a refugee camp in Thailand for 2 years before coming to America, he grew up in Sacramento and was criminalized at the age of 22. He was sentenced to 30 years to life and was held for 90 days in the ICE detention facility in Adelanto, California. Sakon is currently working for the Asian Prisoner Support Committee as a Chinatown ambassador, helping Oakland Chinatown remain safe and clean. He also works with houseless communities in the area, connecting them to available resources.
Gracias por su paciencia en tomar en cuenta que este es un evento bilingüe. Y voy a presentar a la persona a mi derecha, Sakoni. Sakoni nació en Laos. Él es uno de 9 hijos de sus padres, cuales se separaron cuando él tenía 5 años. Fue así como tuvo que emigrar a los Estados Unidos con su madre y 3 hermanas. Después de vivir en un campo de refugiados en Tailandia, Sakoni vivió en Sacramento y fue criminalizado a los 22 años. Él fue sentenciado a 30 años a vida y fue detenido por 90 días en el centro de detención en Adelanto, California. Sakoni ahora trabaja para el Comité de Apoyo para Prisioneros Asiáticos como el embajador del barrio chino, asegurándose de que el barrio de China en Oakland permanezca sano y limpio. Sakoni también apoya a las comunidades y vivienda en el área en concentrarlos a recursos disponibles. Y un fuerte aplauso.
Is Yuri Aguila Rodriguez, is a Mexican woman who fled the U.S. after her partner was murdered. She was caught at the border and was detained at a detention center in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She was detained for 3 months, which she described as feeling like an eternity, like a tiger in a cage, especially as a trans woman. She is now fighting her asylum case in the Bay Area and is receiving mental health support for her depression.
Y luego el siguiente es Yuri Águila Rodríguez, es una mujer de México que emigró a los Estados Unidos después de que su pareja fue asesinada. Ella fue detenida en la frontera de los Estados Unidos y fue transferida al centro de detención de CIYJA en Nuevo México. Ella fue detenida por 3 meses, donde ella describe su experiencia como una eternidad y sentirse como una tigresa enjaulada, especialmente como una mujer trans. Ella ahora está peleando por su caso de asilo en el área de la Bahía y está recibiendo apoyo con servicios de salud mental para su depresión. Un fuerte aplauso.
Next is Floricen Ramos. Floricen is an indigenous Huichol woman who migrated from Mexico and lives in Lodi with her 3 children. Shortly after becoming the main source of income for her family after her husband was deported, Floricen was detained by ICE while she had breakfast with her children. Now that she has successfully been liberated, Floricen continues to advocate for the many lives she came across while she was detained. Recently, she published a piece reflecting on the ways in which the ankle monitor she has to wear post-detention keeps her incarcerated in her own home.
Siguiente, Floricen Ramos es una mujer huichol que emigró de México y vive en Lodi, California con 3 hijos. Ella se convirtió en la proveedora primaria de su familia después de que su marido fue deportado. Poco después, Floricen fue detenida por la migra mientras estaba desayunando con sus hijos. Ahora que es libre, Floricen continúa abogando para su comunidad que conoció cuando estaba detenida. Más reciente, ella publicó un artículo donde ella habla de la manera que el monitor de tobillo que tiene que usar después de ser detenida le permanece enjaulada en su casa. Un fuerte aplauso.
Last but not least, Raul Lopez is a Guatemalan immigrant who successfully fought for his liberation despite the rising attacks against immigrants from the Trump administration, including indefinite detention. From detention center closures to medical negligence, Raul has survived the dangers of both state-run and privately owned detentions. Now free from ICE's grasp, Raul has been able to receive rehabilitation support as he fights his legal battle alongside his family and community.
Raúl López es un hombre de guatemalteco que luchó por su liberación sin importar los nuevos ataques contra los inmigrantes de la administración de Trump, incluyendo la detención indefinida. Desde ser transferido de un centro de detención a negligencia médica, Raúl ha sobrevivido los peligros de los centros de detenciones públicos y privados. Ahora que es libre de las garras de la migra, Raúl ha podido recibir apoyo de su rehabilitación mientras que sigue luchando la batalla legal con su familia y comunidad. Fuerte aplauso.
So we truly have an amazing group of amazing panelists, and I'm very excited to learn from you all.
Tenemos un grupo espectacular de panelistas y estamos emocionados de escuchar sobre sus historias y testimonio.
So the first question is for all of our panelists. Thanks for your patience, everyone. We're trying to figure out how to make this work. Our equipment fails us. Technology. Okay, so the first question is for all of our panelists. And maybe we can move to my right, Sakone, if you don't mind starting us off first. So the first question is, tell us a little bit about your experience of being incarcerated, and was there anything that was helpful for you during the time period of incarceration?
first off, I just want to thank everybody for being here and for having me and for allowing me to share space with you. I spent 20 years in CDCR, California Department of Correction, and my first 15 years in prison was chaotic because I started off at the level 4 prison, which is the highest level you could be in. The prison that I go to is all segregated. You know, they call us the others, Asians and Polynesians, and then they have the blacks, the whites, and the Hispanic, North and South. Over there, they kept us segregated because that's how they want it, so that we can't get together and, you know, and pretty much fight for things that's going to help us during our time there. So most of my incarceration for 15 years, I spent segregated. The last 5 years was the last time I spent in isolation, in solitary confinement. Because half that 15 years I spent in solitary confinement, but the last time was in 2012 where I had some spiritual awakening. There was a book that I came across by Cal Newport called How to Succeed in College. As a kid, I always failed at school, and I was always called dumb, stupid, retarded because I didn't know how to learn or retain the information that was taught to me. So I never liked the school, and because of my fear of failure and fear of being judged by my own family, I didn't want to have anything to do with school. So I reevaluated that situation when I ran across that book, and I was like, wow, it's such a thin book. How could you be so successful at college? You know? And when I thought about it and everything that I did, ever since I was separated from my attachment figure, which was my dad and my older brother, when we left Laos, I had no role models, no male figure, no brother to look up to. So I grew up with my sister. And throughout my life, I always wanted to fit in and to find a sense of belonging. And I found that amongst my peers, which is, they're mostly poor. They find other means of surviving, which is stealing, burglarizing car, joining gangs, selling drugs. And these are the people that I felt like I fit in with because they accepted me for who I am. And I was just like them, couldn't learn. So when I evaluated this in prison, when I discovered myself, my true self was that little 5-year-old that was always told that he was dumb, stupid, retarded because he couldn't learn. And at that age, my desire was to learn, but I didn't know how. So I decided to change my life around and decided to make a promise. Before I did that, the thing that helped me out most was to be accountable, accept responsibility for all the mistakes and the poor choices that I made in my life, and own it. And after that, I made a promise to better myself. So when I came out of ASAC, segregation, I went back to the mainline. And the first thing I did was seek out my counselor and got involved with the education system. At that time, I started learning computer. And I was amazed and mesmerized by how thin these computer screens were. I didn't even know how to use a mouse. So when I watched, they set me up on a computer, and I was just amazed at how things were working. So I was fixated on the screen, and I was figuring out how this guy's, doing all these things. So I see his finger clicking the mouse. So I thought, oh, that was easy. There's only one button, the scroll button. That's all I saw. So when he told me, sit down, give it a try. And I was scrolling around, and I was trying to play this typing game, and I kept pushing the mouse button. It wouldn't work. So I started shaking the mouse button. I shook it to my ear. And the teacher's like, hey, what are you doing? So, well, from that day on, because of my desire to learn and to want to better myself, I made that commitment. So 17 months was the record for passing that OSRT class, the Office Services Related Technology class, and I did it in 5 months because I really wanted it. And I knew now that you know, if I want something bad enough, all I have to do is apply myself and work hard. And from then on, I noticed that other people need help. So I started helping them. I broke a lot of barriers. You know, I didn't care if they were black, white, Mexican, it didn't matter to me. Because I know now that education is colorblind. So my teacher, she was also a college coordinator. She asked, she said, hey, I see, you know, you're helping people and they're receptive to it. They're listening. So she said, I got this college program called Coastline Community College. We're going to get rid of this class. We're going to get rid of this program if nobody signs up for it. And so I took the challenge. There was only like 2-3 students at that time. But so I started encouraging people because I understood the reason why people don't want to learn is because of that fear of failure. So I saw myself in every one of those guys. And then I told them, look, I'll do it first, and then I'll help you, just like the computer program. And together, I know we will succeed. So when I started, all the books were outdated. I took a counseling and a business 100 class. They required like a 12th edition for the business class. And the only book that was available, and it was ripped and torn, was an 8th edition. And I was able to show my peers that the book doesn't matter. It's the information that's in that book. So I took the class and I passed it with a B. And everybody saw that I could do it. And so people would start to sign up. And when the education people noticed that there were a lot of people signing up for college and was interested in learning, they were like, wow, you know, we started demanding updated books. So we had to petition to get these updated books and to get school materials. And those are the much needed things. Now, today, you know, it shows that education really does work. Because not only I was able to break barriers, but the violence on the yard was less, and more people were signing up for college. And we introduced a couple more colleges to New Folsom State Prison. So it was growing, expanding, and the violence went down. So education does work, but we have to fight for it. And the reason I wanted to mention this to you is to bring awareness, you know, to how the education system in there was. It's like they don't care if you learn or not. It's up to the individual. And everything that we want to get for school, we have to fight for it. Because sometimes we hear in the news that, oh yeah, there's this college program available. They don't really care about it. They just want to make it a name only that it's available. But they don't let you know that there's no books for the program. If there are, they're outdated. And nobody ever promotes that. So it took us to build that program. And that education was one of the biggest things that really helped me come home 17 years early. So thank you for allowing me to share this.
Y la pregunta para los demás panelistas es la misma. Dinos un poco de tu experiencia mientras encarcelado y algo que te ayudó mientras este periodo.
Sí, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Yuri Rodríguez. Soy originaria de Guadalajara, Jalisco, México. Yo estoy aquí en Estados Unidos más que nada por asilo, porque a mi pareja lo mataron. Un cártel es muy famoso, el cártel Jalisco Nueva Generación. Yo, aparte de eso...
Hola, hi, my name is Yuri, and I'm from Guadalajara, and I'm here to speak on my experience. My partner was assassinated by the cartel in Jalisco.
Bueno, me empiezo porque ya me... Bueno, mi nombre es Yuri Rodríguez y yo soy originaria de Guadalajara, Jalisco, México. Aquí estoy yo pidiendo asilo porque a mi pareja lo secuestraron, a mi pareja lo mataron y me secuestraron y Sorry. Ya él lo mataron, a mí me secuestraron y yo estoy aquí pidiendo asilo en los Estados Unidos. Y pues la verdad es, yo llegué por la frontera de Tijuana, por el Chaparral, yo entré a la garita de San Diego. Yo estuve en las dichosas hieleras que le nombran en la dirección de San Diego. Desde que yo entré a mi proceso por ICE, yo pensé que era fácil llegar a los Estados Unidos y decir, ay, pues wow, ya estoy en Estados Unidos y voy a durar 2 días y ya me van a soltar. Pues me voy dando la sorpresa de que no fue así.
Again, my name is Judy Rodriguez. I'm here seeking asylum due to the fact that I was abducted and my partner was murdered. I came through the Tijuana-San Diego border in what they call hieleras, meaning freezers. Through the ICE proceedings, I thought that coming to the United States was an easy experience, that I was going to be in detention for 2 days, but it didn't result that way.
Cuando yo llego a las hieleras, los policías de ICE me hacen mis preguntas por qué era el motivo de que yo estaba pidiendo asilo en los Estados Unidos. Y pues yo les conté, me hicieron que levantara la mano, que entre comillas, para mí, porque es una corrupción lo que está haciendo el gobierno de los Estados Unidos, que supuestamente levantara la mano, que supuestamente que siguiera un juramento.
And so when I was in the freezers, the ICE agents asked me several questions regarding why I was seeking asylum, and they asked me to raise my hand in order to not lie of like the answers I was going to give to.
Pues yo ante las autoridades de los Estados Unidos yo juré que realmente lo que yo estaba diciendo es real y que yo estaba huyendo por persecución en México. Yo no puedo estar en México porque si yo llego a México yo siento que al llegar a mí me están esperando para matarme, porque si lo hicieron con mi pareja. Yo estuve secuestrada 15 días en México. Gracias a Dios estoy aquí para contarles mi historia.
And so I said my truth because I'm seeking asylum due to the fact that if I return to Mexico, they are going to kill me the same way that they killed my partner. And I was actually abducted for 15 days, so there's a credible fear for me to go back to Mexico.
Cuando yo iba de Guadalajara a México, a Tijuana, cuando a mí me liberó la Marina en México, yo lo que hice fue subirme al tren llamado La Bestia, como todo migrante lo hace, siendo mexicanos o no siendo mexicanos. Todas las personas que somos de bajos recursos en México es la vía más rápida para poder viajar. Cuando vienen muchas personas que se vienen de Centroamérica, que vienen en el llamado La Bestia.
And so I traveled from Tijuana. I was liberated in Tijuana through the Marines, and then I was able to catch the train, which is called La Bestia, which is a common form of traveling for Central American folks seeking also asylum. It's one of the fastest routes that you can take to seek asylum in the U.S. border.
Yo duré 15 días en el tren sin tomar agua y sin comer, porque la gente de México es muy... Para mí, siendo yo de México, yo los considero gente mala. Siendo uno de nuestro mismo país, hay mucha gente mala, de mucha gente que tiene la mente perversa, que no puede ayudar a su prójimo. Yo duré 15 días en el tren, se paró una noche en el desierto, sin tomar agua, y ahí lo que uno se va y yo a mí no me da vergüenza decirlo porque yo lo digo honradamente. Yo me ponía y le pedía $1 peso, $2 a las personas en la calle, y había gente que con mala gana te daba esa moneda, pero yo con aquella vergüenza y todo yo lo hacía. ¿Por qué? Porque era para mi beneficio, para comer en el camino, así sean tortillas con queso o como fuera, pero tenía que llegar a la frontera de Estados Unidos.
And so I traveled for 15 days without food, without water, even though despite the fact that I'm from Mexico, I witnessed the discrimination and the attacks that Mexican people go against folks that are traveling to the U.S. border. I spent a day in the desert without water, and so I now appreciate the fact that folks give money, give at least like tortilla with cheese to provide meals that we need.
Cuando yo ya llego a la frontera de Mexicali, llegué porque el tren llega hasta Mexicali, no llega hasta Tijuana. Entonces yo fui con unas personas que son de la iglesia y ellos me hicieron el favor de comprarme un boleto que era de Mexicali a Tijuana. Y yo ahí estuve en Tijuana por 15 días, aparte de lo que pasé y sufrí para llegar a la frontera. Duré 15 días para llegar hasta mi destino, hasta Tijuana, y ahí fue donde me entregué al grupo Beta.
And so I traveled, my first stop was to Mexicali, where I seek a refuge with the faith people in the church. They bought me a ticket to Tijuana because the train doesn't go all the way to Tijuana. I spent there 15 days that I suffered until I arrived to my final destination where I turned myself into ice.
Cuando yo llego a Tijuana, yo llego y pregunto que cómo le podía yo hacer porque yo no sabía qué hacer en Tijuana porque pues toda mi familia es de Jalisco, no sabía qué hacer. Entonces ya le pregunté a unas personas y me dijeron, tú pues tienes que irte al dichoso un lugar que se llama Chaparral, que es por entrar a San Diego. Y ya me dice una señora, ¿sabes qué? Pues tienes que apuntarte. Yo de hecho yo también voy a lo mismo, yo voy a apuntarme para pedir asilo, si quieres vente y vamos y te apuntas de una vez para que te den un número, porque no es de llegar y te vas a entregar y para adentro, no. Ahí es un proceso que es hasta que te toque tu número y es como me van pasando a la gente que viene por asilo.
So in Tijuana, they asked me about, I was asking how to travel all the way to San Diego due to the fact that all my family is from Jalisco. I met someone that they told me that I needed to travel to Chaparral in San Diego. Similar to them, they were asking for asylum, and it was a process. It's not just an easy access that you arrive to the U.S. and you are able to enter. The process looks like getting a number and then waiting to be let in.
Cuando yo fui a apuntarme, yo me fui con la señora, ella me llevó a un albergue donde estaba ella en Tijuana. Yo duré 15 días esperando a mi número que me tocara para poder entrar yo a los Estados Unidos. Cuando yo ya entro yo a las hieleras y yo duré todavía en las hieleras, duré 15 días en aquel gran frío. Qué gente tan inhumana el gobierno de Estados Unidos, y lo digo enojada porque es realmente lo que está haciendo este presidente y es algo feo, o sea, y pobre gente que pasa por donde pasé yo y que sigue pasando la gente. El presidente es un señor inhumano que no tiene corazón, la verdad.
I signed up to seek asylum, where I also went to a shelter. I spent there 15 days to enter the U.S., and then I was forced to go into these hieleras, the freezers, which are really, really cold, and there are really inhumane conditions that the U.S. is creating. And I'm really angry and upset at this President Trump because of the horrible inhumane conditions that people that go through when seeking asylum, that they're still happening at this moment.
Un mes antes de que yo entrara, se murió una chica trans en la hielera. No sé si supieron de eso que pasó. Yo entré el 6 de septiembre, entré yo a las hieleras y salí el 6 de noviembre. Yo recuerdo que duré 3 meses encerrada porque me traían de un lado de una detención a otra, de una detención a otra. Es un martirio, aparte de que la atención médica es fatal, los guardias son unos... No quiero decir malas palabras, sorry, porque es la realidad. A mí yo estuve detenida, que supuestamente, porque yo cuando llegué yo les dije a los de ICE que yo quería mi traslado a CIYJA, que es una detención que es especialmente para chicas trans.
A month before, I don't know if you all heard about a trans woman who died where I was located. I entered this detention in Tobola on September 6th and came out on November 6th, meaning I was detained for 3 months. And I was being transferred from different detention centers. The guards over there, excuse my language, I don't want to curse, but they're really bad. And ICE hold me in the Cibola detention center. Cibola.
Cuando yo salgo de la guerrilla, me mandan a otra aula de detención. De ahí, la atención médica es fatal. Yo a mí, con los golpes que me habían dado la gente esa que me secuestraron, me pegaron mucho en lo que es el abdomen y mis partes genitales. Yo tenía unos dolores muy fuertes, nunca fueron buenos de atenderme. De la manera que me podían atender era cuando me veían tirada, arrastrándome, peor que un animal. Era de la forma que me podían atender. Tenías que meter un request y después de que metiste ese request, iban a ver si era urgente que te podían atender. Si era urgente, te atendían. Si no era urgente, allá te bolas como tú puedas.
So the medical conditions inside of the detentions are horrible. As I mentioned, when I was abducted, I was beaten in different parts of my body. And so you wouldn't be able to get medical attention unless you were literally on the floor pleading for medical attention. And even then, you had to put a request for them to determine whether it was an emergency for them to see you.
Yo metí muchos requests. Yo no nos dejaban salir a la yarda, ni para correr un rato, ni para nada. Nos tenían en una jaula con 4 paredes y te daban la comida peor que un perro. Eso no es justo de que el gobierno de Trump esté haciendo esto. Y aparte, la comida cruda, un arroz pésimo, te daban una comida como si fuera una vasca. Yo sinceramente yo no comía eso. Yo prefería mejor morirme de hambre que comerme eso.
So I put in several requests, and also my experience looked like them not being giving us access to go to the patio outside. The food was horrible. The food was given to us as we were animals, or worse than that. We were given like raw rice, which was terrible, and I would rather not eat and die than to eat this terrible food that the Trump administration, that's what they're creating.
Para poder hacer una llamada tenía que ser muy urgente y tenían que pedir los guardias, tenían que pedir permisos superiores para que uno pudiera hacer una llamada. Mi mamá duró sin saber más de mí más de 2 meses y medio después de que yo entré a detención, porque mi mamá no supo cuando yo me vine de México a los Estados Unidos. No me dio tiempo ni de despedirme de ella por lo mismo que me pasó a mí, que si yo ella estado ahí en México y no estuviera yo aquí para contarles lo que me pasó.
Even to make a call, I had to make a request to the guards. Actually, my mother didn't even know my existence for 2 months. I had to flee Mexico without even having the chance and opportunity to say my goodbyes to my mother. And I had to do that, and this is why I'm now telling my story at this moment.
Y luego ahí en la detención yo estaba en Cibola Country, en Nuevo México, en el Albuquerque. Estaban unas personas que son abogados voluntarios, que ellos son los que nos aprueban, que nos consiguen más que nada personas que les nombran sponsor. A lo mejor se han de saber ustedes que es un sponsor, que se hace responsable de las personas trans que están en la detención, que no tienen básicamente familia en Estados Unidos, o que en vez de muchas de las cosas tienen la familia pero no tienen el apoyo de la familia, te dan la espalda. A eso te lo digo por experiencia porque a mí me pasa. Yo tengo familia en Los Ángeles y es como si la verdad no la tuviera. Y yo tengo mi sponsor en Oakland, California.
I was detained in New Mexico, and in there we were given volunteer lawyers who would put us in contact with sponsors for trans women. And because especially folks that don't have family or access to any community or family support, I say this through my experience. My sponsor actually lives here in Oakland, California.
Y después de, como les estaba diciendo, de la comida, cuanto a las personas, el abogado de pro bono nos consiguen a la persona que es el sponsor te puede mandar que $50, $60 para que tú compres tu comisaria. La comisaria es que puedes comprar galletas, sopa, o sea, si tú no quieres comer lo que te están dando ahí, o sea, no lo puedes comer, o sea, no lo comes y tú tienes como una despensa en para que puedas comer y no comer lo que te están dando ahí, porque la comida de ahí sí es, la verdad es muy fea y te la dan de mala gana y te la dan por la puerta, está un boquete por ahí te la dan, no te dejan ni agarrar aire, ni salir a la yarda, ni caminar por los pasillos, o sea que es algo feo. O sea, cuando sales tú de la detención y que ya te dejan en libertad, pues ni ves ni la luz porque pues estás encerrado, o sea, no ves, sabes si ya anocheció, si ya amaneció, no sabes nada.
And one example for that sponsors support trans people inside is by providing monetary support so that you can buy food, cookies, soups, just food if you don't want to eat the food inside. As I was mentioning, the food is really horrible. Something else that I experienced inside is that you don't have a sense of time because you can't see the sunlight, so that doesn't provide you with a sense of time.
Y luego lo que me dio más coraje, que supuestamente es una detención para chicas trans, ahí hay hombres y mujeres también que es un reclusorio, para mí eso es un reclusorio donde yo estuve internada, porque miles y miles de personas. Lo que a mí me da coraje y no estoy de acuerdo, que si yo estoy en la 900, en la detención 900, ahí mismo en Cíbola, ¿por qué tienen que meternos donde hay hombres? Que supuestamente es una detención, te lo digo porque a mí, y no más a mí, a varias chicas nos han revolvido con hombres. Y yo no estoy de acuerdo en eso, y yo se lo dije muchas veces a los oficiales que yo no quería estar ahí, que me sacaran, que yo no quería estar ahí. Y ellos decían, no, pues tú te vas a estar donde te estamos mandando, donde tú quieras. Y muy groseros que se portaron al menos conmigo, se portaron muy groseros.
I was angry because it's supposed to be a detention center for trans women. And what I don't agree with this is the fact that they would always mix us with men. I would always complain about this for them to let me out. But again, the guards were really mean towards like the trans women inside of this detention center.
Pues eso es todo lo que les puedo compartir y pues muchas gracias por ponerme atención a lo que les estoy explicando de mi historia.
That's pretty much all I can share with you all, my experience, and thanks for listening.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Floricel Liborio Ramos.
Good afternoon, my name is Floricel Liborio Ramos.
Voy a contarles cómo migración ha afectado mucho a mi familia.
I'm going to tell you a story about how immigration has really affected my family.
Mi familia es una familia pequeña de 3 hijos y mi pareja.
My family is a really small family of 3 children and my partner.
En el 2012, migración arrestó a mi pareja sin ninguna piedad ni compasión y ese mismo día lo deportaron.
So 2012, immigration detained my partner with no mercy, with no compassion, and that same day they deported him.
Me quedé sola con la responsabilidad de mis 3 hijos y el costo de renta, víveres, pago de todo.
And that day I was left all by myself with the responsibility of 3 children and bills. I was left with all of the bills to pay for myself.
Pero lo más difícil es ver a mis hijos sufriendo porque de la noche a la mañana su papá no estaba con nosotros.
And I think that the worst part and the most difficult part is to see my children suffer because from one day to another, their father was gone.
Me tuve que buscar 2 trabajos para sacarlos adelante.
I had to find 2 jobs so we can live a good life.
Para que no les faltara comida ni tampoco un techo para que ellos durmieran.
So that my kids would not have a lack of food, and they would also have a roof over their heads.
Sentía que con lo poquito que ganaba en los 2 trabajos le estaba dando lo mejor para ellos.
I feel like even the very little wages that I earned working those 2 jobs, that my children had everything that they needed.
Durante varios años me mantuve así,
And during many years, I maintained myself like that,
sola con ellos.
by myself with them.
En el 2017,
In 2017,
un día domingo que yo estaba compartiendo una comida con mis hijos en un restaurante,
it was a Sunday morning where I shared breakfast with my kids.
saliendo del restaurante, migración estaba afuera por mí.
And while we exited the restaurant, immigration was waiting for me.
Migración no tuvo ninguna compasión conmigo ni con mis hijos.
Immigration had no compassion with me or my children.
Me arrestaron, me esposaron y me subieron a una van.
They arrested me, they handcuffed me, and they put me in a vehicle, a marked vehicle.
Mis hijos volvieron a tener otra vez la misma pesadilla,
My children had once again that nightmare,
la tristeza,
the sadness,
y yo me subí con el corazón roto. Me subí a la van con el corazón roto
and I went into that van with a broken heart
porque dejaba a mis hijos a la deriva.
because I was abandoning my children
Sin saber qué era lo que iba a pasar,
without me knowing what was going to happen.
los días empezaron a pasar los días, pasaron los meses.
The days were passing by, more days passed by, more months passed by,
Sin saber qué rumbo iba a tomar mi caso.
without even knowing what was going to happen with my case, or who was going to take my case.
Mis hijos estaban solos aquí.
My children were by themselves here.
Me cargaron de detención en detención. Estuve en Yuba City, estuve en Contra Costa, a un lado de San Francisco.
So they took me from facility to facility. I was in Yuba City, and I was transferred to West County Detention Facility, which is right next to San Francisco.
Cuando estaba en Contra Costa, fueron 3 meses.
When I was in Contra Costa, I was there for 3 months.
Fueron mis peores meses que viví. Hay una pesadilla.
They were the worst 3 months I've ever lived, the worst nightmare.
Los oficiales no tenían ninguna compasión con nosotros, nos gritaban, nos humillaban. En el tiempo de calor, que fue junio, la temperatura más de 100, los cuartos calientísimos.
The guards would yell at us, would humiliate us. They would treat us with no compassion. And during the summer months, when it was really hot, it was over 100 degrees. The cells and the pods were extremely hot.
Todo era de metal, las camas eran de metal, de fierro, los colchones de plástico, el calor se apoderaba del cuarto, estaba calientísimo adentro.
Everything was made out of metal. The beds were made. It was made out of metal bars. The beds were made out of plastic. That the heat really owned every single part of all of those pods.
Yo en varias ocasiones les dije a los oficiales que adentro era como me estaba asfixiando. En las noches, con una toalla sanitaria, yo limpiaba el piso para dormir.
I would tell the guards that with all of this heat, I felt like I was suffocating. And there was one instance where at night I would use a pad or sanitary towel, and I would clean the floor so I could lay down on the floor.
Porque el aire acondicionado no servía.
Because the air conditioning didn't work.
Decían que estaba dañado y que no podían repararlo por falta de que no había dinero.
That the guards kept saying that the air conditioner was broken, and because there was no money, that they were not going to fix it.
A cada rato se acababa el papel de baño, los jabones, pasta de diente. Cada vez que llegaba supuestamente ahí, nos daban un papel por cada persona por 3 días.
So toilet paper would run out, toothpaste would run out, other essential items would run out, and there were times where they would give us, and toilet paper, so there were times where they would give us one sheet for the next 3 days.
Fueron muy difícil y muy tristes esos 3 meses que estuve ahí.
It was extremely difficult and really sad, those 3 months that I was there.
Pero mi pesadilla siguió porque me trasladaron a Bakersfield.
And my nightmare continued because I was transferred to Bakersfield.
Y allá empezó otra vez algo triste porque es una detención donde un espacio así y puras camas.
It was really sad because that facility looks like a space like this. There's nothing but beds lined up.
Camas literas que había personas arriba y abajo. En la noche, la primera noche que dormí ahí y apagaron las luces y volví, me senté porque dije yo, ¿qué es esto? Todas las personas haz de cuenta que yo estaba viviendo en una morgue.
So there were bunk beds just lined up in the facility, and one night I got up and I sat up and I looked around and it looked like I was living in a morgue, like there was just dead people everywhere.
Todo se parecía como cadáveres, todos cubiertos de todo blanco, las cobijas blancas, y dije yo, ¿qué es esto? Nada, todos los cuerpos dormidos. Para mí fue una pesadilla que duraron 9 meses.
Like I said, they all looked like cadavers just lined up, sleeping with white sheets over them. They just looked like bodies, one by one, and I just could not believe what I was witnessing. And that nightmare continued for another 9 months.
Yo no tenía para que recursos para que me depositaran dinero para hablar con mis hijos. No tenía que me depositar dinero para la comisaria. Ahí ofrecieron trabajo para ganar $1 lavando baños y yo hice eso. Tuve que hacer eso porque mi necesidad tan grande de hablar con mis hijos me ayudaba.
I didn't have any resources to make phone calls. I didn't have any resources to put money in my commissary account, and I couldn't even talk to my children. And so in these facilities, what they would do is you would have to work for $1 a day, and I was working to cleaning restrooms every day just so I could talk to my children.
$1 para mí era mucho, porque con ese $1 yo podía oír las voces de mis hijos.
$1 for me was a lot, because that $1 gave me the ability to speak to my children.
Se cerró el ciclo del año, yo en una detención, y migración me liberó.
So this continued about 1 whole year, and then immigration finally let me go.
Yo luego pensé en mis hijos, de volverlos a abrazar, besar y estar con ellos.
And I was thinking about my children so I could hug them and kiss them once again.
Pero cuando llegué a San Francisco, California, en la detención de migración, me dejaron ir, pero me dejaron salir con el brazalete.
When I arrived at the immigration detention here in San Francisco, I was released under one condition, which was the ankle monitor, which I have on right now. She just pulled up her pants so you can see that there is a ankle monitor.
Mi pesadilla siguió porque con el brazalete no puedo tener un trabajo. Con el brazalete sigo presa en mi propia casa.
And my nightmare continued because with this ankle monitor, I can't find a job. With this ankle monitor, I feel detained in my own house.
He perdido muchas cosas por causa del brazalete. He perdido trabajos por el ruido que hace. He perdido mis amistades por tener miedo de acercarse a mi casa porque con el brazalete migración sigue checando.
I lost a lot of things with this ankle monitor. I lost jobs because of the noise that it makes. I lost friendships because people are afraid to get near me and even come to my house because immigration knows where I live and people
quiero brindarle a mis hijos algo mejor, estar con ellos.
I want to give everything for my children a better life.
Pero con este brazalete no puedo tener un trabajo bien porque todavía no tengo un permiso de trabajo.
And with this ankle monitor, I can't have a steady job, and also because I still don't have a work permit.
Y quiero pedirles su ayuda, lo poquito que ustedes me pueden ayudar para poder pagar mi permiso de trabajo y yo poder tener un trabajo digno para yo darle a mis hijos lo que ellos merecen.
Like I said, I wanted to give my children everything that they need, and I'm going to ask you all for a huge favor. Anything can help. Any small contribution can help, so I can pay for my work permit, so I'm able to have a steady job and be able to provide for my children for longer periods of time.
Porque lamentablemente con el brazalete o sin un permiso de trabajo, yo no puedo juntar el costo que el permiso de trabajo me está costando.
Because unfortunately, because of the ankle monitor and the fees for the employment cards, I'm not able to have a job.
Yo le doy gracias a la comunidad porque durante todo este tiempo de un año redondo, yo estando en la detención, sus llamadas, su ayuda con mis hijos, todo lo que ellos portaron hacia mí, hacia mis hijos, yo les agradezco mucho desde el fondo de mi corazón.
I just want to thank the community so much because while I was in detention for over a year, I received so many calls, so many letters, and also all the support that you've given my children during the time that I was away. And I, from the bottom of my heart, I want to tell the community, thank you so much.
Yo le doy las gracias a ustedes por estar aquí, escuchando mi caso, escuchando mi situación, una situación que es muy desgarradora para mis hijos y para mí y para todo el inmigrante que estamos pasando esta situación y esta necesidad.
From the bottom of my heart, again, I want to say thank you so much because this is a very difficult situation, and I want to thank you all for being here and listening to my story, listening to my case, because this case is not just my case, but there are several cases like this for a lot of immigrants in our community.
Muchísimas gracias por su tiempo.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yes, so give it up to the speakers and thank y'all so much for your patience as we try to do language accessibility, right? Trying to reach all the levels of access and justice. So muchas gracias por su paciencia de la introducción, de la interpretación. Sé que es poco largo, pero eso es parte de la justicia internacional, ¿verdad? Que estamos dando. And so again, as Floricel was sharing, unfortunately, she was given the news that her asylum was denied. And so what is going to remain her in the country is that we ensure that she can renew her work permit. And so Isel has a little canteen where we're trying to fundraise for funds for her work permit. Entonces, desafortunadamente le acaban de decir a Floricel que su caso de asilo fue negado. Entonces, eso la pone en riesgo y para asegurar que no tenga más riesgo, necesitamos renovar su permiso de trabajo y ser quien está aquí está tomando donaciones para este permiso de Floricel si gustan hacer una donación. So I'll pass it over to Stacy. Okay. Ahora vamos a dejar a Raúl que nos cuente su historia. We're now going to let Raúl tell us a little bit more about his story.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Raúl López. Soy originario de Guatemala. En primer lugar, quiero dar gracias a las personas que hicieron posible esta reunión el día de hoy para poder
being here in this community.
Para poder compartir con ustedes cosas que personas como nosotros que estuvimos detenidas en un centro de detención vivimos ahí.
This convening is important because people like us get to share our experience being detained.
Yo fui detenido por migración en marzo del 2017. Yo tenía una cita para reportarme con migración ese día y por haber llegado tarde en cita unos días y por un DUI que yo había agarrado, me dijeron que tenían que detenerme y llevarme a detención.
I was detained in March 2017. I had a night check-in that day, and because I was late and for a DUI I was convicted of during that time, they said that they had to detain me.
Desde entonces, desde esa fecha, fui detenido, me llevaron para acá a la detención de West County Detention en Richmond. Ahí yo estuve detenido por 15 meses ahí en esta detención y la verdad es de que fue muy difícil para mí porque mi esposa y mis hijos ellos se quedaron solos sin nadie quien tuviera que trabajar para traer comida a la casa y pagar biles y todos los otros gastos que se ocupan hacer.
From that date, I was detained at the West County Richmond facility, and there I was for 15 months. And the reality is that it was very difficult, not just for me, but for my family. I was left alone, and my family was left alone with no one to help provide and pay for the bills.
Eso para mí fue demasiado difícil porque yo no dormía con el pensamiento de que cómo iban ellos a sobrevivir sin mi soporte porque yo era el único que trabajaba en ese entonces para poder crecer a mis hijos, mantener a mi esposa y salir adelante. Mi esposa inmediatamente tuvo que empezar a buscar trabajo y ponerse a trabajar para poder crecer a mis hijos, a seguir viviendo, aunque fuera tristemente sin mí. Ellos, gracias a Dios, con la ayuda de la comunidad también, fueron pasándola sin mí, fueron viviendo este tiempo que yo estuve detenido ahí sin mí y estábamos pues siempre pidiéndole a Dios, ¿no? Que un día pasara algo y me pudieran dejar salir otra vez bajo fianza.
That was a very difficult time for me and my family. I was thinking, how are they going to make it? I was the only one working. How would they move forward? And fortunately, my wife got a job so that she could be able to provide. And we started having conversations about how our family was going to grow, sadly, without me. And thankfully, with the community support, they made it while I was detained. I would always just ask for God for one day for my release to happen.
Y pues estuve detenido en el centro de Contracosta por 15 meses. Yo para poder distraer mi mente un poco tuve que inscribirme a clases de inglés y luego a empezar a trabajar para poder pasar el tiempo más rápido. Después de 15 meses, un día si no nos lo esperábamos, nos dieron la noticia a los oficiales que gritaron mi nombre y el nombre de 14 personas más que juntaran nuestras cosas porque íbamos a ser liberados de aquí, de esa detención, perdón. Pues yo, sorprendido, estaba yo, en ese instante yo le estaba pidiendo a Dios que ojalá un milagro hubiera sucedido y tal vez me iban a dejar salir, pero no, al llegar a San Francisco, ahí ya preguntamos y nos dijeron que íbamos a ser trasladados a la detención de Colorado.
I was obtaining Contra Costa for 15 months. To distract myself, I signed up for classes and did other things. One day they gave us a notice and called our names to pick up our things, that we would be free. But I was surprised. As I was thanking God, the unexpected happened. I arrived to SF and they told us that we would be transferred to Colorado, to Aurora Detention Center.
Llegamos a la detención de Colorado, que era el lugar Aurora. Pues a seguir con la misma batalla, con el mismo martirio de día a día, como decían las demás personas aquí, la comida ahí es muy mala, uno pues se la tiene que comer nomás para no morirse de hambre, porque pues también, aunque uno tenga dinero para comisaria, la verdad es que no, ahí no venden más que chips, sopas y es algo que también a mí no me gustaba, personalmente no me gustaba ese tipo de comida, pero pues tenía que comerla para poder sobrevivir.
I arrived at the detention center and still had the same struggles of day to day as folks here shared. The food was terrible and we had to eat the food out of hunger. Even the food that was sold in commissary, like snacks, chips, and soup, still wasn't healthy food that we had access to.
Y pues pues entonces también lo que hice fue tratar de llenar una aplicación para entrar a trabajar a la cocina, aunque era algo que nada más para poder pasar el tiempo más rápido y no sentir mucho el tiempo de estar encerrado todo el día en la celda. Y también traté de inscribirme a programas de rehabilitación como lo que es a grupos de alcohólicos anónimos y logré hacer esto, logré estudiar cómo leí los libros de alcohólicos anónimos y pues ahí aprendí técnicas de cómo evitar el alcohol, cómo hacer uno para cuando uno está pasando por situaciones difíciles, en vez de buscar la salida más fácil de empezar a consumir bebidas alcohólicas.
permission to work in the kitchen to your staff myself, and also signed up for rehab programs to study and learn about alcoholism and how to avoid using alcohol during difficult times.
Después de esto, de todo esto que yo hice, siempre pidiéndole a Dios que algún día sucediera un milagro para poder salir y estar con mi familia. Y gracias a Dios que pues un día que yo escuché una protesta que estaba fuera de la detención aquí en Richmond, y yo le dije a mi esposa que tratara de contactarse con las personas que organizaban estas protestas para ver si ellos nos podían ayudar en algo y para poder yo salir. Gracias a Dios ella logró contactarse con esta organización que se llama Incarceration. Después de eso ella ya se fue, por medio de ellos ya se contactó con la otra organización que se llama CIYJA, y gracias a la ayuda de todas estas personas, que la verdad es que estoy súper agradecido con todos ellos porque esta fue una gran ayuda, y gracias a todas las personas también de las iglesias que nos estuvieron apoyando mucho emocionalmente y económicamente. Después de
I was always asking for God for a miracle to happen. Then God, one day, I heard a protest outside the West County Detention Facility, and I told my wife to reach out to those folks to see if they could support. Thankfully, she was able to connect and connected with Interfaith for Human Integrity, and then through them we met CIYJA. And thankfully, thanks to everyone's support, I am free. I'm so grateful for all of your support and also the support of all the churches who help fundraise money for me and my family.
Gracias a todos ellos, pues ahora, y perdón, también lo más importante, mis abogados de la Asociación de Abogados.
And most importantly, shout out to my attorneys.
Estoy muy agradecido con ellos porque ellos trabajaron muy duro para conseguir mi libertad.
They worked tirelessly for my freedom.
Gracias a ellos ahora estoy libre con mi familia. Mi pesadilla pues siempre sigue porque no tengo una respuesta positiva de migración, pero pues al menos por ahora estoy libre y estamos esperando pues la respuesta de una aplicación que se metió para una visa U, y esperando que primero Dios un día de estos tengamos una respuesta para poder vivir ya un poco más tranquilos sin estar con el pensamiento en la mente de que pues se me vaya el día de la corte y ese día no tenga una respuesta positiva y me puedan deportar.
Thanks to everyone. For now, I am free and waiting for a response for an application so that I can live more calmly with a response.
Y muchas gracias por haberme escuchado. Es todo lo que quiero compartir con ustedes. Que tengan una feliz tarde y muy agradecido con todas las personas que nos han apoyado. Muchas gracias.
Yes, thank you everyone for all your support. And shout out to Yuri and Raul. This is actually their first time public speaking. So thank you so much for your support. Muchas gracias a usted, Yuri y Raúl, que también, igual es su primera vez compartiendo su historia. Entonces, gracias por su paciencia. Entonces, le vamos a pasar la pregunta para atrás a Stacy. So we're going to pass it back to Stacy.
Could we give another round of applause to the panelists?
Vamos a darles un aplauso.
person speaking for the first time as well.
Y sé que esto fue difícil, especialmente las personas que esta es su primera vez.
And I also just want to honor and acknowledge the power and resistance on this panel.
El poder en este panel,
Both organizing on the inside, advocating for educational programming, better conditions,
organizando por mejor educación y condiciones adentro de la detención.
and then also want to name the organizing that also happens on the outside that gets folks free.
Y también los esfuerzos organizativos que pasan afuera de los centros de detención para liberar a personas como las que tenemos aquí.
So thank you, everyone.
Gracias a todos.
So I wish we had more time, but we are a little bit limited on time because of the consecutive interpretation. So I'm going to move us along actually to our final question.
Me gustaría tener más tiempo, pero como tuvimos que hacer interpretación a la misma vez, vamos a girar a nuestra última pregunta.
So I think actually everyone has already touched on this already.
Creo que muchas personas ya han platicado esta pregunta.
And a lot of folks here are attending this event to learn more and figure out how they can take action.
Muchas personas que están aquí quieren aprender qué pueden hacer para tomar acción, para apoyar la rehabilitación y no el encarcelamiento.
So what are some calls to actions that you would love folks here in this room to take?
¿Pueden compartir cuáles son unas acciones que puede tomar la gente que está aquí para apoyar a personas que están detenidas y a sus casos?
And it's going to be for everybody.
Y esta pregunta es para todos.
And any final remarks and call to action?
Cualquier comentario o llamados de acción.
Okay, I'll start with you, Sakam. Is that okay?
I just want to encourage people to please speak up for those who don't have voices. As for me, I just got done doing a life sentence, so having this final removal over my head is like doing another life sentence. It's like double jeopardy. And I'm in a position now where I'm going to be torn away from my family again. Now that I've developed a better understanding of how to build a relationship with my family and how to open up and speak with them. So not a day go by without that constant worry and fear over my head that one day, immigration is going to come and get me and send me back to Laos. So I encourage everyone to please share with the communities of what's going on and about the ICE raid and any programs that are promoting, programs that are helping immigrants and refugees and helping stop ICE raids. Please help support those programs. I work for APSC. We work with immigrants and refugees, and you can support APSC. You can support, the Greenlining. Anything you can do, just get involved and share. And thank you so much for being here today, and again for allowing me to share space with you and for listening to my story. I appreciate you and your time. Thank you.
Pues yo nomás le voy a dar 2 palabras, a no ser muy larga. Pues para estas elecciones piensen por quién van a votar, porque este presidente que está ahorita es un presidente que no tiene conciencia ni corazón para la gente inmigrante y principalmente los de ICE que inhumanamente llegan agarrando a la gente sin pedirles una explicación y vienen y te agarran y te vienen como un perro a las páginas.
What I tell people is think about these elections, think about who you're voting for, and look at the example of who we have now, the current person who has no heart, and hold ICE accountable for tearing communities apart and treating people like animals.
Para mí unidad es unirnos a las comunidades de nuestros pueblos, de las ciudades como San Francisco, Oakland, y pues basta ya las deportaciones y las separaciones de familias. Yo creo que una comunidad unida jamás será
and I'm gonna translate that to apologize.
De nuevo, muchas gracias a todos. Pues también lo mismo, que tenemos que estar unidos, ayudarnos unos a los otros para poder sobrevivir a todas las injusticias que el señor Trump ha sembrado en todas las personas y todos estos arrestos que inmigración está haciendo. Y también quiero disculparme si la verdad es que pues es mi primera vez y soy muy malo yo para esto.
Again, I want to thank you so much, and just say that we have to be united, we have to help each other, be able to live through these injustices under this administration, who is also cultivating these injustices and the bad things that immigration is doing. And again, want to apologize, this is my first time.
So, thank you everyone for it's just such an honor to be alongside you all, and thank you so much for 2 questions. Oh, we have time for questions. All right, so we have time for 2 questions. I was going to wrap things up, but if anyone has questions, you can just raise your hand and I will pass over the mic. So the question was, what was the experience of being incarcerated in a prison versus an immigration detention center? How are they different?
In prison, I went there at a young age. When you're going to prison for a life sentence, you expect nothing but to die in prison. So what I did was adjust to living there for the rest of my life and have nothing to look forward to. And with prison, they're starting to have programs now. You can go to school, get an education, and also have all these self-help groups that can help you develop a better understanding of yourself and how to effectively communicate with your family and other people so that you can be more sociable. With the ICE detention, it's different, right? It's like a life sentence. That's the similarity. But it's more stressful and depressing because not only have I want my freedom to be with my family and did all that was asked of me, but because of this new life sentence, this final removal order, I'm faced with being torn away from my family again, like I was at the age of 5. So it's like re-traumatizing me. I don't know when they'll come and take me and deport me, but with that constant word of fear, is very stressful. Every day, I try to make the most of it by just, continually to apologize to my family for all the problems that I put them through, all the pains and the suffering. And I try to make the most of it by letting them know how much I appreciate them. So by always being constantly worried, I can't focus on other things like continuing my education, pursuing that bachelor's degree or getting a master's degree. So just, that's the most terrible thing about facing a deportation order is that you don't know when it's going to happen. But with the life sentence, I already accepted my fate as dying in prison.
Thanks for sharing. I think one common thread among all of the panelists is the impact of incarceration, not only on the person who is incarcerated, but that ripple effect of the community, the loved ones, family, and everyone being affected, that ripple effect of violence and incarceration. So thank you for sharing. We have time for one last question, if
So part of the work that a lot of us are involved in is pushing to close detention facilities. And I know that there's differences of opinion in terms of the best strategy to do that, but also some of the consequences that can result once you push to close the facility, like people being transferred out of state. I was wondering if folks on the panel had an opinion about that, or can give us guidance in terms of the best way to do that work.
Okay, we'll start with Zacone and then let other panelists answer too.
Because of the mass incarceration in state prison, I've known people that were sent out of state to do prison time. So the problem they face when they are being sent to other state to do time is that they would get involved with riots with the people from the other state. And they always label, like, California prisoners are stigmatized as being the most violent. And that's one of the problems that would create if a California prisoner or inmate gets sent to a prisoner in a prison in a different state. But nobody deserves to be separated from their family and to be torn away from their family, especially the stories that I hear in Adelanto, in the detention center, where people have already finished doing their sentences 10, 15 years later. Now they're doing time again, but worse, because now they're being torn away from the family when they have already managed to rebuild their lives, have families, and just to think about them again in there is difficult for me, because I have an opportunity to come out. Most of the guys are still in there. And if you could help push any way, shape, or form to help close those detention centers down and help people seek asylum or have an opportunity for those that are not criminals and for those that do have families and have remained like crime-free or has a business and is rebuilding and doing positive things in the community to have a chance to stay, then I support you and support any organization that is for helping people stay here and continue with their lives.
So Raúl was someone who actually was transferred right after the closures. Entonces Raúl fue una persona que fue trasladado siguiendo el cierre de un centro de detención. Entonces Raúl, no sé si gustas comentar.
Sí, pues cuando yo fui trasladado para Colorado, no sé, pienso que en mi opinión personal, pues mejor me hubieran dejado salir y me hubieran mandado a un centro de rehabilitación para yo buscarle solución a mi problema, en vez de estar encerrado ahí creándome más traumas, porque yo el estar encerrado ahí era mi mente. Hasta la fecha estoy no se me olvida esto, porque el pensar de que mi familia estaba pasándola muy difícil afuera.
Yeah, so my short answer would be that they could have freed me. They could have freed me. They had the choice to free me. They chose to transfer me. They chose to re-traumatize me. They chose to have me live through these experiences again, knowing that they could have freed me.
Y de último, pues que quiero decirle que pues en vez de centros de detención deberían de haber más centros de rehabilitación para personas que tenemos problemas con cualquier tipo de sustancias, adicciones de alcohol o drogas, lo que sea. Sería mejor que haya rehabilitación y no centros de detención, porque en estos centros de detención las personas salen peor de ahí, porque el estar encerrado es una situación muy difícil. Muchas gracias por escucharme y de nuevo muchas gracias por la oportunidad que nos dieron para poder expresar lo que hemos vivido el día de hoy. Gracias.
And lastly, I'll say that there needs to be more rehabilitation. There needs to be more rehabilitation options. When I was freed and when people are free, they're freed with much worse than when folks go inside, and there need to be rehabilitation opportunities for people who struggle with substance abuse.
Eso que dice Raúl es muy cierto. Eso que hace el migración, ICE, toda esa gente que siendo gente que indigente, para mí, que duerme en las calles, debería preocuparse el gobierno por su gente que es de aquí, realmente de Estados Unidos, en tenerles un lugar donde vivir, no preocuparse por gente que viene en buen plan a buscar una mejor vida, no a hacer malos perjuicios. En eso se debería de preocupar el presidente Trump, en tenerles un lugar a esas personas que están durmiendo en las calles, o en esos tiempos que el tiempo está re loco, que a veces está de buenas, a veces está lloviendo, a veces está, y esas gentes que se quedan a dormir abajo de esos puentes, mojándose, como hay gente que duerme en los parques, en sus casas de campaña. Eso es lo que se debería de preocupar el presidente Trump, no en otras cosas.
And I also want to add that we need more housing opportunities. We need more housing solutions. What Raul shares is true. I know there's a lot of houseless people, and this administration fails to address us and instead chooses to criminalize folks like us, folks who are looking for a better opportunity, and instead of addressing the housing crisis and situation that is happening. Gracias.
Y pues la verdad, si yo fuera nacida y criada y nativa aquí, yo no votaría por ese presidente, porque a lo que sé, se viene otra vez para las elecciones. Yo no lo voto. Yo la verdad, sinceramente, yo no votaría por ese hombre y no me gusta ni para voltearlo a mirar, porque me cae en la patada.
Gracias, Vivi. And I just want to say that if I were you, I wouldn't vote for this president. I wouldn't vote for someone like him who's ugly.
On that note, let's give our panelists another round of applause. I want the California Immigrant Youth Justice Alliance folks to wave or stand up if you're able. First, one of the calls to action was to get involved, right? So CIYJA is a great organization to get in touch with. Key and Zacone are also part of the Asian Prisoner Support Committee. I don't know if Key's back there. So you can also talk to them about how to get involved. And I think Yuri also mentioned direct support, so like commissary, for example, as a way to really support folks who are currently inside. And of course, Floricel is collecting donations to help get her work permit as well. So with that, I think, is there anything else that?
Yeah, I also just wanted to ask for folks who don't know the situation that is happening in the Inland Empire. Unfortunately, there are buses. So ICE and CBP are creating a crisis. And CBP is stranding and dropping people off at Greyhounds in the Inland Empire in the middle of the night without phone, without money, and most of them haven't showered for days. And so CIYJA is a statewide organization, and our SoCal team right now is literally camping out at these locations because folks are being dropped off at random times of the night. And so if you follow us on social media, I promise you all those funds are going directly to folks. We're buying phones for people, we're buying hotels, we're waiting, we're taking them to the airport, to the train, we're helping people take showers, we're buying people food. And all that, and folks are coming in hundreds. And so, like you we heard today, it's not only the individuals who are being impacted, it's also their families. And so again, let's pay attention to how ICE and CBP are creating crisis, right? Because this could not be a crisis. Folks are asking to be notified when buses are going to be coming in, and CBP is failing to do that because they want to create a crisis. And so just asking folks, there's many ways that you can support, like Stacey said, donating for people's commissary, supporting Coricel bringing her work permit, uplifting the struggle of trans folks in detention, and also uplifting the need for rehabilitation services, like Raul shared and has experienced. And so this is the Venmo. If you'd like to donate money, I know some folks are like, can I donate online? But we need the money fast because people are coming in hundreds, and I'm not exaggerating. And so thank y'all so much for being here and your support. And the folks will be here for a minute if folks would like to chat. And thank you so much for Stacey for translating and moderating. And if you don't know Stacey's an organizer with Survive and Punish, who is a fierce organizer, and is also supporting survivors of violence. So please support Survive and Punish as well. And then again, like shared, the folks who are organizing inside of prisons, super appreciate y'all's work as well.
Oh, one last plug. So many ways to take action. So I wanted to flag Free Leah campaign. So Leah Biru is a Black immigrant survivor from Ethiopia who has a felony conviction from defending herself against her abusive husband. And as a result of her conviction, she is now in Yuba County Jail fighting her deportation. And we need everyone to take action to urge Governor Newsom to pardon Leah and stop her deportation, because governors can do that. And so if you go to freeleah.org, so that's free and then LIYAH.org, you can see the petition and other ways to take action. So on that note, we'll end the program. So thank you everyone.